And we are back. Welcome back, ladies and gents. It's the Smart to Noise Ratio Pro Audio Podcast. This is episode 51, if you're counting. I'm your humble host, John Dayton, and joining me tonight, as always, in the attic of the Batcave, Anthony Kuzabucki.
Hey there.
We have an idea. We have a topic tonight. We're going to get to that shortly. We're just going to...
Right after we sort out why there's a 2x6 just nailed to the floor.
That was probably from when they built the back wall. It was probably for a brace, for a kicker. Or there's a hole there, because... we can yank it up.
The hammer's still on it.
Do we need to pause and rip that up so you can know what's under there?
I'll find out later, I'm sure. In an awful case of circumstances. But anyways.
So, yeah, just to go through some stuff that we did this week, I became a little bit more of a lighting guy. We had a pretty nice piece of song support come through for one of the new songs that my boss and his partner wrote. And was just doing neat stuff, like changed colors pretty frequently, did some sweeping, swirling stuff. And I have these LEDs, color mixers, surrounding the screen, and these nice white slatted set pieces that make a pretty good canvas for them. So I spent like 90 minutes before service just playing it through in time, building cues, setting up follow times and crossfades and everything. And I got it to where it was like not too bad. And then I spent another hour with it after service, getting it ready for, the bulk of the people that are going to see it. We'll see it tomorrow morning perfected. But
right.
That was just broadening the horizons a little bit. And I'm sure anybody who's out there who's really in lighting is mocking me for just now covering something that I should have learned when I was like 13, working in high school theater. But lighting at my high school was 3 banks of fluorescent lights. So I've always been a little bit behind the curve. And
they had dimmers on them, though, right?
No. It was the switches for the front and rear ones were on one side of the stage, and the switch for the middle bank was on the other side of the stage, so that no matter what side you came on from, you could get light on. So
that's how Michael Johnson got there.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
The air quotes lighting crew was 2 kids that had to stand on milk crates so they could see each other over the set pieces. If you leaned way out one way and the other way, they could see each other over the set and around the soft goods. And then with a nod, you would throw the switches at the same time, and that's how the light would come up for the scene.
Cool.
They had some footlights, too, and a scary old piano board dimmer rack, but there was too much asbestos and risk of fire. Actually, footlights became illegal. just the type that we had. So we weren't even allowed to use those. And there might have been an old Super Trooper or something, but the lamp had gone out on that sometime in the 70s and never been replaced.
Yeah.
But it's not a lighting show, so I digress. One thing I do want to mention, though, is we just watched, it's the hot new documentary this week. I bumped into it. I forget if it was on Wired or Gizmodo, but about, it's largely about Raymond Pettibone, although he's not in it much. It's mostly Henry Rollins and other members of Black Flag talking about his artwork. And it's sort of mostly about the Black Flag logo, but you learn really a lot of interesting stuff about music at the time, the climate, social climate, political climate at the time.
I guess like the equivalent of Sound City and the Neve console is...
Yeah, it's that kind of a Roots production. It's only about 20 minutes long. It's absolutely worth a look. If I remember, I will post a link to it because it's worthy. And what surprised us even more was at the end. We looked up, Black Flag and clicked on the link on Raymond Pettibone's name on Wikipedia, and it leads to his page. And the dude's got art in major museums and places. Like, he's got a special on PBS and all kinds of stuff. So I just thought that was a cool little thing that I didn't know about. Like, Black Flag is one of those bands that I've sort of always known about because
everybody knows about. There's at least 4 kids in your high school with a jean jacket with a Black Flag patch on it.
Right. I was almost one of them. Like, I very nearly got a Black Flag tattoo, but because it's just so freaking cool. Like, it's instantly recognizable. Even without knowing that much about them, like, I didn't get it because I thought, maybe I ought to actually listen to that band before I get a tattoo. But like, it's instantly recognizable. And it's connected to something heavy duty. Like, anything about Henry Rollins, that guy doesn't mess around. But anyway, that got me to thinking about artwork and also thinking about my lighting. Last show we talked about, there was one more discussion about how to get into the industry. Anth is slowly remembering it all. It's coming back to him like a dream. Yeah. There was a fair amount of cigars and adult beverages last time in celebration of our 50th episode. But it just got me thinking about some of the relationships I've struck up with bands over the years. Periodically in your career as a young sound guy, you get adopted by a particular band, either because, you see them at the club that you mix at all the time, or they hire you to...
Or, somebody's brother or sister or
Right, right. Yeah, actually, it could start even a fair bit more innocuously than that. Like you're maybe not even a sound guy yet, but you hang out with somebody's older brother's band or something like that. And, if you've got more talents than just the ability to mix, like if you've got a decent eye for art, like maybe, like I'm not a particularly good graphic or visual artist, but I was taught how to have a critical eye. Like I grew up in a carpentry family, so like I can see small differences in space and angle, negative space. Like my eye was already trained for that, and I got some good artistic training for that. So I don't know. It was just always something that I was able to offer just as a further asset. Like if a band was designing artwork, they could show it to me, and I'd look at it and turn it upside down and turn it right side back up again. And you're like, it's a little out of whack. And so anyway, it's just all about being diverse in your talents, like developing one talent, developing a different talent that supports that talent. That's one of the biggest things for me is all the stuff I learned when I was studying lighting and art all transferred instantly to sound when I started doing that. Like all the same things about space and proportion and, color, all instantly in my mind just switched over from my eyes to my ears and became, lessons on tone and dynamics.
Yeah, you see sound.
Yeah. Well, I don't see sounds unless I have that really good coffee. That does happen, though.
Coffee. Yes, that.
But anyway, the purpose of this show, we decided earlier this afternoon, shows go better when we have some sort of idea what we're going to blab about.
We don't do that much stuff. Like, we run out of that pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm kind of drying up now, and we sort of exhausted the let's just talk about what we're working on.
That album is done. It's mastered. It's getting sent out for print. It's done.
Nice.
I don't have to worry about it for another 2 weeks. I have to start release show rehearsals.
Do you have to shrink wrap them too, or
just me and some Saran wrap and a hairdryer?
Because he's a full sirs. Make sure you don't get any grass clippings in him, okay?
Yeah.
But at any rate, we. I'm actually almost out of mastering work. I'm approaching the end of sort of a long...
You burned out all of Reddit for mastering.
Well, and another guy just started offering his services for free, so I was going to let that skate for a little bit until I made my services offered overtly again. But if any listeners out there, if you got a project you're working on, or your friends have a project you're working on, if you're tracking and mixing and aren't sure about mastering, give us a call. Get in touch with your Uncle Jon and your cousin Anth. We'll do that stuff for you.
Or even mixing. I'll do that and ship it over to John, drive it over to John, walk it over to John, and hand it to him when he leaves.
But yeah, we are for hire. We can take care of your project. Any rate, not to further digress. The spark of inspiration that I had for a show today was things that sound bad that sound good, and how fitting that we were listening to some Black Flag before we got here, because it's so raunchy.
Yeah,
nasty,
it's just not
dirty.
like you hear it the first time, and unless you like that kind of stuff, you're like, nope. All right, let's put the share back on. Like,
let's put the anything back on.
Yeah.
But, and I was actually, even before that, I don't know why, but I think I randomly heard a Sum 41 song in somebody else's Spotify playlist, and I was like, man, whatever happened to those guys? So I dialed them up on Pandora today.
To those guys?
I listened to a bunch of third wave power pop punk on the way to work today. That was not bad. But at the same time, I mean, there's stuff that's like, meh, and then there's stuff that makes you want to pump your fist. And it sort of doesn't matter what it sounds like. I mean, it was cool that punk got all, this 80s happened to punk too. It just sort of happened in the 90s that, like, you take something that's real visceral and fast and, the pissed off ramblings of angry young men, and, suddenly it's got exciting kick drums and interesting delays and good dynamics.
Like I'm pretty sure I owned All Killer No Filter. I'm pretty sure I owned that album. I think that it had, what song did it have on it? I can't remember the name.
Fat Lip was the big single.
Yeah.
That was the one I heard.
Yeah, Fat Lip was on that, and that's
it's like
why I
half
bought it.
Beastie Boys track, half I don't know what.
I don't even remember. I had it in middle school, I think. But
yeah, I was out of college when that came out. But I was reliving my youth.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, I don't know, it was cool. I was into, not like, I'm sure I'll get laughed at, but like not like punk, but like I listened to Blink-182 and Newfound Glory and some ska stuff. Listen to Real Big Fish and Catch-22 and all that. When you're in high school and you think you're cool, and I don't know.
A lot of that stuff was real good though. I mean, there was definitely a glut. I mean, the analogous experience to me was like when glam was real big in the late '80s, early '90s. the stuff that really grabbed me was the stuff that, like, those guys are still on tour, like the Motley Crue, the Cult, you know, I don't know, Poison, sort of, but I mean, you know, the
Def Leppard,
and then, you know, like the White Lions and the Cinderellas and like all that other crap that your girlfriend liked, you know, to get played on the, you know, the top 10 at 10 on rock and roll radio at the time. Like, that stuff all faded away. But you look at who's still on tour. It's Motley Crue. It's Poison. It's
Van Halen's back on tour.
Finally. Oy.
Yeah.
Too late. Too little too late.
They still can't straighten out Jump either. That was a mess. I don't know what it is.
Was it a mess at the show you saw?
Oh, it was yeah, like, I don't know if he sampled it in like 44.1 and they played the rest of the show at 48 or what, but like, well, it was about, like, it wasn't a good third down, it was like almost a third down.
That's the difference between 48K and 44.1. It was not a weird third.
Yeah, it was,
and you can't bend. Like, a guitar player can't bend. Nah. There's no way you can play with it.
He plays the whole thing on keys, and like, he was playing it ish, like he had a keyboard in front of him and stuff. You're listening to it, you're like, nope.
Well, the thing about that
one or the other would work, but
like,
not
years ago. Like, they didn't, you know, want to, you know, probably not for money reasons, probably for artistic reasons. Like, Eddie, being the control freak that he is, would play the keyboard part from Jump, and he would sequence it fresh every few days on tour. So it was always something that he played recently that was going out. And so, like, you see it happen. Like, there's a real famous video on YouTube of Jump, and the keyboard part is right, but it is so wrong.
Yeah,
like, it's played correctly, but it's played back at the wrong sample rate, and it's pretty comical watching Eddie. Like, and he's not like, I finally figured it out that it had to be him. Like, he must still be doing it, because if it was the fault of some keyboard tech somewhere, there would probably be like a thrown guitar and some teeth knocked out, or like, at the very least, like, you would hear stories of like a keyboard tech running flat out through the far reaches of a stadium parking lot.
Yep.
But instead, he's just
one
like,
guy screaming on fire.
Sorry, Mr. Eddie, sir. But no, like, Ed just like puts his head down and plays through it. Like, you can see him trying to like bend, and he's like reaching for the tuners and not getting it. And I think the reason that he carries on with it is because it's his damn fault. Like, the machine like must boot up at 48, and if he sequences it at 48 and the machine gets shifted into 44.1 before the show, then it's going to play back wrong.
It was such a mess. The rest of it was like, I don't know. It definitely would have been cool to see him like 70s, 80s, as opposed to when I saw him last year or the year before or something like that. Like, it was still cool because it was Diamond Dave.
Well, I was all upset that you were going to get to go to that show, because originally like, I was mixing Battle of the Bands at work.
Oh yeah,
and
Anth was supposed to judge it.
He was going to be one of the judges, and I get a text at like 4 in the afternoon, like, "Hey man, I'm going to Van Halen." Like, and I couldn't even be mad. I was like, "Oh."
Well, I think I asked you, like, "Can you get out of that?" And you're like, "No." I was like, "All right, well, I got to make some other phone calls then."
Oh, I didn't even realize there was a chance for me to go to it. I thought you were just trying to get out of it.
No, I had a ticket. I had an extra ticket because
it's probably real good. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, so anyway, I made the demand. I was like, all right, I'll let you off, but you got to get me cell phone video of somebody get me a doctor, because I knew it was on the set list, and he sent it to me. So while I'm striking the show, phone beeps, take it out. Here's something for you, Johnny. I played it 3 seconds. I didn't even finish the clip. I just tried to shut it off and deleted it. It was awful.
Yeah, like, it was a phone video, but that wasn't the issue.
No, certainly not. Like, I was excited enough about Van Halen and that song in particular, like, that it was back on a live set list. And Dave was just so bad. But anyway.
That motherfucker can scissor kick like nobody's business.
Still, yeah, that's great. Should look at other aging elder statesmen of rock like Pete Townshend, who's still a bona fide double middle finger in the air rock and roll badass.
Did we tell a story about
still faking.
Amanda seeing that the first time?
It may have come up once or twice. We were watching the 12-12-12 concert.
Yeah, and they're playing, and she's watching it, and like, she knows the Who, she's listened to him and stuff, but like, doesn't care enough about the history or anything. She's like, "Is he windmilling?"
No. The line was, "Is that old man windmilling?" And Anthony and I were like,
"He's gonna hear you in New York."
This is live. You can't say. You're gonna jinx the band. We're like, look up the patent for that. I'm pretty sure his name's on it. Like, that guy swinging the microphone by the cord, he came up with that trick too.
Yeah, like, this is look, just like, she likes it. Like, she really likes the Who. Just not like, she's not one of the people to go back and actually watch old concert videos or anything. Like, doesn't have the history behind it. Just likes the music. Like, other stuff, like, I would put her up against anybody on 80s and 90s pop music and probably wreck them. Like, there are just weird things that she knows that most probably people in the bands don't know.
Girl is mad deep on that.
Yeah. But, older, classic rock and roll. She likes it, just not that much. So.
Yep. And yeah, there was a thread on Reddit. Somebody, it wasn't in one of the audio forums that we frequent, but it came up like, if you could time travel back, you had one blank concert ticket in hand and you could make it out for anything. What show would you hit up? And like one of the most prominent answers was like the Who at the Isle of Wight. And I was going to, write in like Van Halen circa 81, 82, and it was already in there like 10 times.
Right.
And oddly enough, the same day, and I might link to this too for any Van Halen fans that are out there, somebody came up with, in 81, they played 3 nights at the same venue out in LA and filmed a bunch of it to make videos for, Hear About It Later, Unchained, and one other one. So like if you've ever seen like the official MTV videos for those songs, they came from that show. And the bootleggers and the fans and everything have had just VHF copies off of MTV, and I don't know if they've ever been released anywhere else, but one of the Van Halen websites got a hold of way better stock than anybody else has ever had and published those last week. So that was a treat to watch. I actually still have 2 of them to watch. I haven't seen Unchained or the other one yet, but that was pretty cool to see. Anyway, so we totally digressed. We
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask you if we were going to get back on topic.
We could.
You want to just keep rolling.
There's plenty of time left. Let me do a time check here. Oh gosh, we're barely a quarter of the way into the show. We've got all kinds of time. So but punk is a perfect example of stuff that sounds bad that sounds good, but it's not every punk band that can do it. So like the Sex Pistols, you listen to anything of theirs and it just sounds so bad. But yet, somehow out of it, like, I don't even know that it's good songwriting. It was just that they were so in earnest about shoving their middle finger up your nose. Like, something that their anger and angst just comes through as power, no matter how crappy the recording.
Yeah, there's so much dirt and emotion and all of it.
Yep.
Like, it was cool. Well, it didn't sound bad. It didn't sound great, though. Like, you go back and listen to it. I had the Led Zeppelin BBC sessions. That was the first Led Zeppelin album that I ever bought. I remember because my mom had to go to the hospital for something, so my grandma was watching me, and my grandma didn't know any better because she's Polish and she speaks Polish fluently, she speaks English fluently, but she just doesn't care about anything. So I was like, Gram, can we go to Media Play? So it's obviously a while ago.
I was gonna say
Media Play, yeah. Gram, can we go to Media Play? I need to buy an album. I have $14. She's like, okay, let's go to Media Play. And like, she's like, I don't want to go in there. There's people playing guitars and rock music. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be back in a second. I had to come back out to the car because whatever wad was working at the cash register, like, there's a parental advisory on one of the CDs that you would like to buy. I need an adult to okay that. I was like, all right, so I put back whatever Blink-182 album it was, and got the Led Zeppelin BBC sessions, and they filmed it. I think it was like 3 different shows, and there's like 3 versions of Communication Breakdown and all that kind of stuff. And it was, at the time recorded very well, but you listen to it compared to like not remastered, but like the How the West Was Won or other live stuff. You're like, wow, that doesn't sound good, but there's so much power in the music that it does sound good.
One of the things that always strikes me about watching older concert videos, and that's the thing is like now, I mean, there's just cell phone video of everything. I mean, there's cell phone video of the Paperboys band from down the street playing at some corner, club.
We watched actually from the 12-12-12 concert, we watched Dead or Alive from Bon Jovi because Amanda missed the guitar change because, dude standing over there with a double neck acoustic guitar.
I had that on DVD, by the way.
Oh yeah, because your dude was there.
Well, no, my dad just, he DVR'd it for me and burned me a copy.
Gonna need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we went back and watched it, and from, some schmo in the upper deck zooms in on his iPhone and like is watching him the entire time. Like Richie just takes off guitar, throws it at a dude, grabs another guitar, and like has a lot more time than you thought he did because no one saw him at the live taping switch guitars out and rip right into that solo, but
they worked that out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Every show.
So, yeah, 2 things, and I forget what the first one is. Maybe it'll come to me while I'm going on the second one. But just on the subject of punk bands, there was this band called The Hoax, which they had been playing for quite a while. Like,
were they on tour with the Rejects?
No. Oh, the Rejects. Like REJEX, those Rejects.
Yeah.
I recorded those guys in my garage.
It was Josh.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was Mullen's first band. Well, one of them. Anyway. But anyway, this band called The Hoax was so bad. And it wasn't for lack of trying, because they had been a band for like 10 years or something. I mean, they got started when they were 12, and here they were like late teens, early 20s, still playing. And the thing was, like, the promoters would get them on a bill, and they would pack the place. I mean, they would get like 300, 400, 500 kids into a venue that was meant to hold 250. And they sucked, and their instruments didn't sound good, and they couldn't keep time, but they were just so passionate about it. And like, their show was just so fun. Not just to watch, like, I go back and listen to recordings of them, like, you just hear how much fun they're having. And so that goes to, you know, whether it's how the band acts or, you know, what they put into their music. Like, I remember what it was, like, just a similar thing.
This day and age used to be like that.
Oh, yeah.
They were their entire amazing set was MXPX covers, and like, you've got this disgustingly good drummer and a really good guitar player, and they're just, you know, playing punk songs and stuff, and lo and behold, you know, drummer turns out playing Cowboy Stadium and whatever. Jeff Jarvis is playing bass for Vertical Horizon tonight.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if they flew him out, but he's in Iowa playing bass for Vertical Horizon tonight.
Good grief. I didn't know that was still a thing.
Me either, but
it's just talking about like the you know, the purity of the music coming through. I remember when the Chili Peppers, and I think I may have mentioned this on the blog before, possibly on the podcast, when Give It Away Now came out in about, was it like 88, 89? You know, we all had it in our Walkmans, and everybody had like, you know, like one kid in school bought it, and everybody else had a copy of a copy of a copy on, you know, Maxell.
There's about four bits left in that sucker.
Bits? What's a bit? It's analog, son.
Oh, we're talking tapes. All right. I'm sorry.
Dude, CDs, non-existent at that point.
That's
like,
right.
This was a solid 2 years before I bought my first CD. Like, they were out there in the world, but nobody was buying them because they cost $22. But that came out, and I remember, like, we were at a track meet, and we had a boombox, and we were just playing that song over and over and over again. And the headbangers were listening to it, and, like, the weird Jane's Addiction girls were listening to it, and the jocks were like, hey, what's that? Like, everybody was listening to the song, and, like, the boombox is wearing out, and it's playing slower and slower.
All 8 of those D-cell batteries are finally starting to give.
And so, like, but we wanted to hear the song again. So, like, some kid took out his Walkman and, like, twisted the headphones sideways, and we stole a bullhorn from one of the coaches and just crammed the earphones up to the mic so we could hear that song one more time. We were just, you know, which is why, like, memories like that, and other memories too of, like, you know, the first couple of Megadeth albums, the production values were incredibly poor, as with a lot of, like, metal and speed metal. Like, even the first couple of Metallica records, like
Kill 'Em All is still my favorite.
It's an amazing record, but it's so poorly recorded. Anybody can make a better metal record than that now. Easily. And but you know, the music is just so well written and so compelling, and the people playing it are so fervent about it that you're willing to just listen to it. Like, I can't listen to a ton because eventually the production values do get through to me. But I still will listen. I don't listen to Metallica anymore. But
that's how I got through a father-daughter dance. I was supposed to come home, and me and Amanda were supposed to go out somewhere, and they, you know, as I was getting in my car, like, hey, wait, no, our guy bailed. We need you to run sound for the father-daughter dance. It's like, tonight? They're like, yeah, it starts in 15 minutes. Like,
Did you have to DJ it, or just...
No, Mark Webber DJ'd it. He crooned.
Cats and kittens.
There was some old guy playing a drum kit with a hi-hat and a kick drum. I don't even know if there's a snare in there.
Along with the DJ?
No, well, he was not DJing, emceeing, I'm sorry. So he was singing, someone was playing piano, and some old guy was playing, like, kick drum, hi-hat, maybe a snare, maybe. I was sitting back at the desk the entire time. Pretty much what they needed me to do was make sure that nothing started on fire.
Right.
Which happens down there more than I would like to let on. But
when Anth says he can't make it because he's putting out fires at work, he's
literally
putting out literal fire. That's not Holy Ghost fire, and that's not figurative fire, literary fire.
Shit's actually going to burn down.
Somebody let the smoke out, and Anth's chasing it down with the ABC with the CO2. So all right. Well, anyway, I think you guys get the point. We've talked about this before. If you're a long time listener, you've heard us gab about this stuff before. So I want to go on, like, with sound systems improving almost literally by the minute, like with digital consoles available to the masses, with line arrays available to the masses, stuff's possible that just was not possible 10 years ago. So now there's really no excuses. Like, a line array and a digital console really separates the men from the boys in terms of mixing. Yep. So now live guys have this thing that was previously only available to studio guys, to where there are no excuses. Like, everything can sound amazing.
You can run all this, well, not all the same, but you can buy Waves plugins and drop them on your Digico or your Avid desk and run, your Fairchild emulations and all that stuff on a live mix.
Yeah. Like, so there's no more of this, like, hey, the fill in the blank didn't sound that good, and like, this is a sound system. Like, no, you can put brilliant microphones and run them through brilliant equipment and have them come out of brilliant speakers. Like, there's no excuse for anything sounding bad. So, being that you can make everything sound really good, and if your musicians are all really good, like, you're set up to have a really good night. But then you have the interesting, like, concept and opportunity to, in the midst of all of this beauty, all these razor sharp inputs and beautiful frequency responses and lush dynamics, to throw something really raunchy in the middle of it. Like, when I broke the concept of, like, let's do a show about stuff that sounds bad, the China Boy cymbal, China cymbal, was the first thing to come to mind.
For me, it was auto-tune. But, like, not like a little bit of auto-tune, like
T-Pain auto-tune?
Right. But that's a thing now. Like, it's not, like, and they've got, your live auto-tune racks or whatever they're called. But, like, still, like, you can have that effect live. And the first time you hear it, you're like, wow, that sounds like balls. And then you realize it sells millions and millions of albums. You listen to it, you're like, that's pretty cool that someone had the nuts to do that and press it, be like, this is what we're doing.
Right.
And they did.
Well, and even that, like, that's an extreme. That's like all the knobs at 11 kind of processing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, even I was hearing somebody was talking about how a few years ago they realized that, like, kids were preferring to hear singers who were auto-tuned, not to that extent, but like singers who were severely corrected, such that there were still artifacts. Like, you could hear definite tuning artifacts.
Yeah. That's the worst.
In the song. So yeah, that's fun to see, like, what becomes the norm. Like, in the, going from vinyl where, pops and bumps and scratches were the norm, to going to tape where hiss was the norm, but you could have a lot more low end and things, to then going to CDs where pristine was the norm, but at first, like, the filters sucked and the DAs and the ADs all sucked and everything sucked. And then, things have gotten steadily better. And then, now MP3s become the norm. And, like, it's weird, but, like, kids, I've heard more than one people say this, like, kids actually prefer, like, when they do these studies, like, what sounds better? This, they play them, they A-B them an MP3 and a CD of the same section of the same song, and people pick the MP3. But it's because they like all those little scrambly Nyquist artifacts that are way up high there.
It's weird. Like, I'm sure I'll get more. I'll turn into Jasper from The Simpsons real quick.
Is that the comic book store guy?
No, that's the old guy that walks around. That's a paddling.
Yeah.
You like an MP3 version better than the vinyl? That's a paddling.
That's a paddling.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I didn't. Like, when I grew up, like, my dad made me listen to vinyl because, the radio station was okay, but he wanted me to listen to all of an album. Right. So vinyl went on through, big giant Panasonic speakers and stuff, and it sounded gorgeous. So that's what I grew up with. And then, you have cassette tapes and CDs and stuff. And, yeah, it sounded, like, real clean and clear and stuff, but it's, it's kind of a mess. So I feel like I got a little jaded a little bit more early than I should have.
Yeah.
On that.
And that's actually
in all things,
an interesting thing. Like, when we were listening to this stuff, like, we would listen to the first couple of Megadeth records on tape, and we were like, yeah, this is great. And of course, we were young men and all amped up on testosterone and whatever else.
Yeah.
So that had something to do with it. But, like, listening back to it years later, like, even the remasters on CD, like, they're just awful. Like, even people who don't know audio or even care about it are just like, wow, that sounds so bad.
But, like, I still listen to it, like, that even though Kill 'Em All sounds so bad, especially when you're listening to, whatever rip, like 128 rip that I listened to for 4 hours one night, like, the entire time, just almost having a seizure, like headbanging in the booth playing Bejeweled Blitz, trying to get through this father-daughter dance. Like that, or like the first Megadeth record is the same thing. But like I can't not listen to it at the same time. Like there are days and times where like I don't really care about that. But
when you're feeling the Black Eyed Peas or the Roots or something like that, it's pretty hard to listen to early Megadeth.
I don't know if I've ever felt the Black Eyed Peas
or whatever.
I don't know. We'll go with Roots.
Okay, Roots.
Yeah, Roots I can live with. Roots, John Legend I can deal. But yeah, even earlier on this week we were going to talk about that too. But I've been listening to the new Daft Punk record like every other schmo in the entire world.
Oh, yeah.
And
even me.
Yeah, like John's even listening to it. Damn, I don't feel that bad. But, I've been listening to it on Spotify, and we were at the mall, and I was like, what, let's swing in Best Buy, see if I can find the CD, the actual CD, because what I've got, I think Spotify tops out at $256 or $320, which is okay.
It's pretty good. Now, a lot of people can't tell the difference.
I know.
But Anthony can hear like ultrasonic dental drills, so he's an exception.
That happened. Brandon's wife Liz was cleaning my teeth, and I was like, "Is that a 25K drill bit?" And she said, "Oh, it's 26." Like, oh, she's like, "Wait, what?" Like, I can hear it in my throat.
So that's the kind of dog ears we're dealing with here. But back to Daft Punk.
Anyways, yeah. So I bought the actual CD, and in my car, I don't have a crazy sound system, but I do have a subwoofer in the back. It's a junky. It's like a Pioneer made out of, I don't know, like leather and dog hair or something.
It's a decent deck with Boston Acoustics.
No, they're Infinity reference speakers in the door, reference series speakers in the door. So they're decent speakers when all of them work, and it's not raining and the connections don't get loose and stuff. but like put it on, and like the first song I listened to, I was like, oh Jesus.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Sweet baby Jesus. If somebody's going to get saved. I couldn't believe how much, like it's still digital, but there's so much more depth to it. Like the bass, even though it was full and fat and punchy and thick and in your throat and your chest before, like it just.
He's doing an indescribable dance of pleasure right now. If I wish, maybe this needs to be a video podcast at some point.
You don't really want to see us, but yeah, just like the actual full CD resolution. I can't imagine like if we had a vinyl deck that worked, go out and buy the actual vinyl of it and listen to songs that they did to tape instead of Pro Tools and stuff. I
think someday there's going to need to be an investment made in vinyl.
For me or in general?
For you, because if I start, there'll be no end to it, and I just can't go there. But my contribution, if you pick up the table, I've got my dad's old Pioneer tube head from when he was in college, and when my dad was in college,
sweet baby Jesus,
it was every young man's prerogative and goal to have a good sound system for when you brought the ladies back to the dorm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you wanted to get some, you had to go out and get some first.
Yeah, so I mean that was just the thing. Like that was the first thing you bought when you went off to college. You got a good
ain't
sound
nothing
system,
like Bill Withers on it.
So my dad gave it to me, bequeathed this head unit to me, and I looked it up, and it's not the best Pioneer,
whatever,
but it's a pretty good one. It's up there on the list. Someday I'm gonna get it recapped and up to snuff. But so like that can come live at your house. You get a turntable. We'll find some spicy speakers to plug in.
My dad doesn't use those old Panasonic thrusters.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that out here so we can not disturb the baby.
Okay.
Late night.
Baby might like it. It's Bill Withers. Baby likes Bill Withers. I don't know.
Right on. All right. So back to the
right on.
Do
Garth.
a time check. You know us. We digress. We divert. Oh, we got half the show left. No problem. So anyway, I brought up the China symbol, and that actually leads me to another diversion. But I was thinking about this. This was something we sort of knew instinctively, but had it confirmed when we did some reading a little bit ago, that when you play a cymbal, all of the good, smooth, round, pleasant harmonics come off the flat side of it and go up to the ceiling. And all the nasty, brash, harsh, edgy harmonics come off of the side. And I don't remember which is which, because
I think the evens are more pleasing.
That sounds right. It could just as easily be wrong. But hey, it's the internet, so if we're wrong, somebody will jump right up and correct us.
Yeah, we'll get that.
It's a nice thing.
Real quick before we're even done taping.
Sure. But
the government will correct us.
Yeah, the NSA, any NSA operatives listening who have a background in audio.
Check that out for us, please.
If you could Google that for me and just text my cell. You've got the number.
Thought it was a burner.
But at any rate, this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, I don't know how drummers go about checking out cymbals, but Brandon just brought in a new cymbal. Like, we were in need of a new one. Brandon brought us a new one, and he's holding it on his finger, and he hits it, and I'm like, dear God. Like, because we've been sending texts back and forth. He's like, what do you want? You want something kind of, bright and short, or, dark and whatever. Yeah. So I kind of told him what we were looking for. Like, something similar to what we had, but maybe a little more of this, a little more of that. So he brings it in, and he holds it, like, right up to my face and whacks it. And I'm like, oh, ugh. I don't want to say anything because, got dropped some cabbage on it and was just going to give it to us. So I was like, all right. So we put it on and I mic'd it up, and mic'd up, it sounds great because we're coming off the top of it. And, all the drummers, one at a time, week after week, different drummers coming in would sit down behind the kit and go, bish on the regular cymbal and on this new one. And they're like, ugh. Like, the revulsion is immediate. But then I was like, playing back the recordings, they hear it and they're like, oh. So. Yeah. That's two things to consider. One, if you're, I don't know how many drummers listen to the show, but if you have influence over a drummer, I would encourage you to, next time they're going to pick out cymbals, go with them or give them some instructions. Like, go down to the Guitar Center or the drum shop and get out like a ride stand, set it up kind of low, so like the drum's about belt buckle height, because you don't want to get it too close to the floor because that'll mess things up too. Yeah. But, instead of just hitting them on the rack or holding it up on your finger, like right next to your ear and bashing it, like get it so that you can get your ears above it.
Where you would put mics.
Right, so that you can hear the cymbal as the overheads are going to hear it. And that's also something to consider when you're miking up a kit. If you want to avoid, like let's say you're mixing a battle or a showcase or something, you don't know the artist coming through. For a safety, make sure you've always got the overheads way up high. Well, not way up high, but, like above the cymbals as much as possible. Or if it's an act that if you're familiar with them, like if the cymbals aren't going to cut, move the cymbals around, move the overhead mics around so they're a little further outside the kit, maybe pointing down at the cymbals that are 45 so they're getting some of those other harmonics. Or if you have, if you're working for a gutter punk band and you want the cymbals to sound like garbage because that's the ethos that they're, the aesthetic that they're after, then mic them shits right on the side, brother.
Or that even, I'm trying to figure out, like, while you're talking about that, like, for a lot of times in recording, I'll under mic the ride right on the bell. Uh-huh. I wonder what the harmonics are coming off of that.
Well, it's the same as the flat side is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So just not. All right, so not the side, because that, like, really what I'll only use that for is if someone's riding the bell, just to pop it up a little bit.
Yep. Well, that's cool, because it'll isolate the bell sound, not the outer radius or whatever you call it. Yeah. I have the weirdest whistle. I don't know if you can hear this. Oh, I finally coughed it out. I was getting the weirdest whistle with every inhale. It's allergy season. All right, so what else is there that just sounds so bad but sounds so good? Like, I can think of a couple. Like, there's some particularly skanky guitar tones that I've heard in the past that you hear.
We call it indie music.
Well, not that stuff. Man. That's all annoying. But, like, I've just heard some really, utterly gross sounding guitars that when the whole band starts playing.
Sonic Youth.
There you go.
Like, not when I was first getting started out, but like, the band that me and John worked for a while, they, it was a worship band. They were touring and stuff, but they also had a rock band that they also did, and, they all got hyped up on pipe tobacco and, like, lattes. Yeah, some bullshit like that. And watched a Sonic Youth video. They're like, they did so much cool stuff. So, like, at the beginning of every show, like, both guitar players came out and dragged their headstocks on the ground. We're like, that's a $2,000 guitar. What the hell are you... Son of... But stuff like that, didn't sound good. That's a bad example. It sounded bad. Sounded bad and still sounded bad after.
Right. Well, there's feedback.
But that, like, every time you see it in a movie or a TV show, anybody, gets within, farting distance of a microphone, it feeds back. Like, well, some wad in the back of the place is not doing their job right if, you're not even breathing on it.
The thing is, like, that's what they do when somebody approaches a mic in a sitcom. Like, that doesn't happen in the real world and hasn't for decades because people like this gear has been prolific enough and good enough that whatever tech set the thing up. I mean, unless it's some BS high school event or something where it's just a kid running it that doesn't know. But like anytime there's a podium mic that counts, there's no feedback. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, like that. But on the opposite end, like stuff like Rage Against the Machine,
where it's sculpted feedback.
I guess. Well, I don't even know if you went that far. Like, I've read a bunch of Tom Morello interviews, and like I've loved Rage Against the Machine since I was a kid, and heard Killing in the Name for the first time, and that's part of his thing. You know, like you watch concerts of them. Like there was I don't know if it's an actual DVD or what, but them pretty much setting up shop in front of the Democratic National Convention, all getting hauled off to jail at the end and having to get bailed out by the record company or the manager or whatever like that. But, you know, like half the show he's just hanging out in front of his amp, like playing exactly what he's playing and then leans in a little bit, feedback, and back at, like, works it as part of the show. And it sounds good. Like, it's good sounding feedback.
Yeah, it was Tony knows who this is, but I forget. There's some famous older guitar player that would walk around at sound check, and anytime he found a spot on stage that was good for feedback, he'd have a roadie come out and gaff it.
Oh, yeah.
And so he'd be able to find it during the show and lean in a little bit. And Metallica, despite being, I think, somewhat on in-ears, still has wedges on stage because you can't make guitar feedback through in-ears. Yeah. So you got to have a little something. Mm-hmm. And then...
I've done that tracking, actually. You know, usually when you track guitars, you're in a different room, and, you know, so you don't have to worry about, you know, hearing the amp and not being able to hear the rest of the music and stuff. But there were a couple songs that me and Brandon tracked where there was, you know, for whatever reason, like I didn't have headphone lines run yet, and we're running mic cables, like drilled a hole through the wall to run mic cables and stuff. So my option was I'm going to play out in the room with the amp, and had... What I have, I had a Proco Rat on and like a clean boost before it, and then that running into a delay and stuff like that. And first time, like one of the few times that I've done a first take of a lead track, hit stop, and we're like, that's a keeper. But the whole thing was based around feedback. Like the whole solo was, you know, runs here and there, and then hold out a low note, let it build up. Let the delay take that, kick off the delay while that's carrying it out, and then, you know, swelling into something else. And it came out sounding really neat, and I'm kind of worried how we're going to do that now because we're retracting the whole thing. And I'm not sure. Not sure how that's going to work. Well, but
just get real amped up on pipe tobacco and mustache wax. Get back in there. That's going to be... It's going to be a new phrase. For best use of tone molecules, we recommend bushwax, mustache wax.
Murray's
mustache.
One can last you a lifetime. One can is a lifetime supply. Menthol cigarettes. Thanks, Dave Chappelle.
Anyway. The internet's going to mock us because sound guys aren't funny. Unless you're a sound guy, and that's our target audience, so, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those sound guys. If you're one of those guys that knows the model number for everything, I'm sure we're not funny to you. And that's okay. We're okay with that, too.
You're probably not listening to us anyways.
Right.
It's okay.
So, yeah, there's the feedback thing.
What else we got?
We each thought of exactly one instance, and that was...
what else? It sounds bad, but sounds good.
Bass fuzz.
I don't know about fuzz. Like I don't even like when Flea uses it. I really don't. Like I'm very particular about bass overdrives. I've noticed because I've got, you know, my DI. It's not a great DI. It's an MXR M80. So it's a pretty decent sounding pre. I like it a lot. I like it better than the Sans amp as a pre, but the overdrive circuit on it's kind of funny. Like there's a, you know, gain amount and then a blend, which is cool. And every time I play bass, I'll use it. And then for certain stuff, like, oh, it's a heavier song, I'll click on, you know, not fuzz, but like a little bit more drive. And in my ears, it sounds awful. And in the monitors, it sounds awful. But in the house with the whole mix, it sounds awesome. Like I use the distortion a little bit more than I usually would. last Sunday night and had people that I've never seen before come and like, your bass sounded really good tonight. Like, wow, maybe the battery's dying in it. I don't know. But yeah, like just a little bit. Like when it starts getting over the top and stuff, and you start getting into like stoner metal.
Yeah,
I think that's a little
fully
bit much.
Clipped.
Yeah,
hard diode clipped bass sound.
You're not even clipping it. It's the whole thing is just shot.
Sorta, I mean, if you're Lemmy, that's okay. But
yeah, I don't know. Like I guess if that's your thing, I think that comes down to pretty much everything. Like if that's your thing, and Lemmy's obviously made a living for himself doing it, and being Lemmy, so I guess it can work. I just for someone that wants to be super versatile and work all over the place, showing up to a gig that you're getting paid for, people that you don't know, and plopping down like a full tone fuzz drive or whatever. You're like, oh, great, you've got one of those boxes. Like, fantastic. You know what? Let's run a split.
Yeah, let's take it clean.
Just in case. Just in case something goes wrong on the pedal board. I still want to have your signal at the board. What's that? Oh no, don't worry about the thing that says bass dirty and why it's off. Don't bother with that. We don't let him drive the bus. might be one of my favorite things I've heard in the studio so far. Oh no, I don't let him drive.
Is that a Joey line?
No.
Oh,
we were talking about Amanda was mentioning today how she's 7 months pregnant, and she's like, third trimester sucks.
I warned you.
Oh yeah, she's like, so, everyone. She's like within like a day of hitting it. They're just night and day. And we've talked about our buddy Joe before, and his just artistic rendering of 4-letter words makes the gods weep. Like the type of things that he comes up with, and not even like not thinking about it, just while he's doing drum edits, just the most glorious curse words that you've ever heard in your entire life. You'll never be able to remember them all. But I was there talking with her, and I was like, you know what? We're going to record it and send it to Joe and tell him to learn something. I can't imagine the amount of terrible things that are going to come out of her mouth when she's giving birth.
Yeah, I would encourage you just to let it go.
Oh yeah, no, I found a little tape recorder.
Nice.
Nice. I'll just set that right next to the bed.
Let it go on long play.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Something we were talking about, Metallica with in-ears and also having wedges so they could feed back on stage. One of the things that strikes me, this is dipping back a little bit, but when we were talking about live recordings, if you go back far enough, you only see live recordings of really, really good bands. I mean, unless it's, some home movie 16 millimeter of,
right. It was a lot of money to do that.
Right. Yeah, it was really expensive, so only the biggest bands got filmed, and so
they still didn't look that good.
Yeah, and listening to them, I mean, we're talking about the era when like the largest live mixing console in the world was 16 channels, right? 24 channels, and but what you hear is you hear it on the Who stuff a lot, which like shows how deaf they already were just about the time they were hitting it big. Mm. Like in between the songs, you hear them talking to the audience, and you hear the weird flanging from all the vocals in the monitors. Like once the song starts up, you hear it less, or like you hear a mic swing around and catch some nasty feedback, and as the guy moves away from it, that's not something bad that sounds good. That's something bad that just sounds bad. But just how much that's gone away in the last few years. Gosh, I love allergy season. All right, well, I don't know how many more. If I start to wrap it up, we'll each think of something else. So
I'm sure. What else is there? Piccolo snare drums.
Pork pie.
There's one floating on Craigslist.
If you can get them under control,
Teaspoon can do it.
Yeah,
because that snare drum on the recording of him that I have sounds gorgeous, and you wouldn't be able to tell it was a pork pie.
Yep. See, I actually like, and this is the problem, that it's kind of a cool thing. Like the cannon shot snare drum was the big thing when I was growing up, and that stayed true from like when AC/DC started doing it right up through Whitesnake and every other hair band in the 80s. But then like with punk, the ringing, pinging snare got to be a thing. Except in the studio, they would tame that sucker, and you can't really do that with the local punk band down the street when the kid shows up with a pork pie. Like, well, that's great. I'm going to have snare on every input tonight. like including somehow on the bass DI, I'm going to have snare.
I brought my custom-made pork pie pillow. Give me a drum key real quick. Let me put this inside.
I was actually, I never did it because I was sort of getting out of that line of work at the time. But our buddy Steve, who builds drums, I texted him one night. I was like, what's the least number of dollars cash that I would have to give you to make me a drum that sounds like a pork pie but isn't? And he was like, yeah, I could probably do that for $200. And he described it to me. I should have saved the message. I could have maybe made that knowledge public. Maybe I'll ask him about it.
Yeah.
And do a little thing about that. Because, like, pork pies do sound cool. They're just 8 times louder than they need to be.
It comes with a cap gun and every one. All
yeah,
6
there's that certain, all the power and authority of a starter's pistol in a 14-inch snare.
They do sound really good. Like, I don't know, I feel like it's like guitar amps. Like, you have to get them to a certain volume. Like, not necessarily volume, but like you have to saturate them a certain amount before they start sounding good. Like with tube amps, right. Solid state amps, whatever. But like you've got to get some juice into them before they start coming alive.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the same thing with snare drums. Like there are some snare drums, like if you're playing a real quiet set and stuff, like I've got a little tiny Gretsch piccolo snare that's doesn't sound like a piccolo snare at all.
I love that drum.
It's awesome. Yeah. And then you've got Brandon's got a DW Collector Series, regular 14 by 5.5. I don't know what they do different there other than invoke some kind of voodoo magic, but it's super delicate. Like you can do brushes on it and it sounds great. But when you wind up and whack that sucker, you could actually hear it outside in the parking lot. Like I had somebody come in like, sounded like somebody was playing drums upstairs. I could hear a snare drum. Like, all right, great. I was just tuning it. Fantastic.
Put the school kids of the neighborhood on alert.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound bad at all. But pork pies, like I feel like the problem with pork pies is they're relatively inexpensive for that type of snare drum. Like you can get a pork pie for a couple $100. DW Collector Series snares, you're dishing out like $500-$600 for a new one, or a Black Beauty costs like $800. They're worth $800, but most of your punk kids don't have $800. So they scrape together their McDonald's money or whatever.
Right, it's like a big showcase purchase for them.
Yeah, I've got a pork pie to go with my Zildjian ZBT cymbals and my pulse drum, whatever.
I had a kid one night. He's setting up his kit, and it was a showcase show, so festival style. We're moving them on and off. I think I had 13 or 14 bands on stage that night. Kid comes up, he's got his whole kit set up, and I'm clipping mics on as fast as I can. And I turn around to shove a mic, in front of a guitar cabinet. I turn back around. And I was like, all right, get the snare. Come on, we got to go. He goes, oh, yeah. Pulls out of the case. I just got a pork pie. It's like I had the snare, the 57 for the snare in my hand. I just threw it on the floor and walked back to the mix. Like, all right, we're good.
Mother.
Aren't you going to put a mic on it? Like, oh, nope, I got all I need.
It's only an arena. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not like we're playing Woodstock where that needs any help.
But the problem with it is you've got kids that can barely play their drums, much less tune them. Like, it took me a while to learn how to tune drums, but I don't play drums. So you got kids that have been playing drums for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and like they haven't touched the drum key since they bought the drum kit.
Right, they think it's just for putting heads on.
Like,
you don't have to do anything with it in the interim.
What is this for? Why is there a keychain holder on it? Am I supposed to carry this around like I'm cool or something? Like, no, you're supposed to tune your damn drums, son. So you've got, an obnoxiously not loud snare that has the ability to sound good, has the ability to sound great.
If you fill it full of circus peanuts.
Clean that off here.
Perfect.
Great. Sounds just like a paper bag. Let's move on. Kids that don't know how to tune their snare drums. Like you can fake it with, like the Audix mics are great for that. Like the Tom mics, because they're going to sound the same pretty much no matter what you're putting in them. At first, that's why I got
almost as good as having a drum brain, because you just get the same damn sound out of it no matter what.
That was my idea at first. It was like, great. Well, if the church isn't going to let me buy new drum heads every few months, then I might as well get mics that's input. Now they do let me buy new drum heads, so now I'm kind of regretting the fact that I wasted that much money on them. But
speaking of, Digico might be back on the table.
I didn't know it was off the table.
It was off. It's been on and off 5 times in the last 5 weeks, but I might be able to swing it. Which, by the way, if you're listening, kids, and you have any interest in a Midas Legend 3048 channel, going cheap, brother, real cheap. I can cut you a deal. We can work. Get in touch. Liam, you're off the hook. We already. It's
cool, man.
But we can. Let's talk.
Yeah. That's good. But yeah, you got kids that don't know how to tune their drums, don't know how to tune the snare drum. So, what they think is, well, if it's tighter, then I can hit it harder. So they just crank the piss out of that sucker, and there's wrinkles on one half. I don't hit that half. And just banging away on that sucker, and the entire time your left eye is just twitching just a little bit, waiting for, and you can't do anything about it because you put a mic on it in the first place. It's just, but when it's done right, it sounds really good.
Yep. I got another one. This is sort of a split example. Things that sound bad that can sound good when used with taste and discretion, but mostly just sound bad. And I don't know how well it's going to work on these mics because they're actually pretty decent condensers. But when you do the Dr. Dre or the hardcore kid thing where you grab the mic and completely cup the grill, that sounds awesome.
It's a super duper condenser.
It makes a really nice like pirate cave sort of effect. Also great for generating feedback, which we've discussed previously. But guys that do that all the time, like I should have a laminated sheet that I hand out. Be like, listen, the manufacturer put a handle on that sumbitch for a reason. Hold the handle.
There's lines and everything. There's like, this is okay, this is less okay, this is not okay.
Right?
There's three grades of okay, and you're past all of them.
I should actually do. I've wound some. I'll tear a 1/4-inch wide strip of gaff tape and wound it around some of my vocal mics at work. And I was like, all right, ma'am, sir or ma'am, that's a warning track. If your hand goes above the warning track, that's a penalty. What's the penalty?
I hope that's a beard hair that I just pulled out of.
Probably. Like, you don't know. The last guy that had a mic holding penalty is still wearing orthopedic shirts. That's all I'm going to say. Going back to the mix, don't cross the warning track. I'll probably do I don't know if I'll do a mini podcast on it, but I probably should do a blog post on why it is that when you wrap your hand around the microphone, it suddenly becomes an Omni and prone to feedback. I've got a pretty good short explanation. I say it to performers all the time.
I watched a DVD last week, I think, of a live concert of a band that me and Amanda used to like a lot. And, the show's pretty cool. I'm watching through. I go up to grab something to drink, come back, and the dude had stuck his 87 in a megaphone. In the business end of a megaphone. I don't know exactly what was going on with that. And I was like, this was 1998, so I guess they didn't have pedals for it back then. But still, I can't imagine, the engineer just looked at, oh, geez, that wasn't on the bill. The 87 doesn't sound good as it is, and then you shove it in a megaphone, and this guy's singing a whole song through it,
Megaphones do have volume controls on them, though, so you can roll it down so it's actually quieter than your voice going into it. I think that's the idea. Yeah. Is you overdrive it, and it's not actually that loud.
Yeah, but if the vocalist is the one driving it, then
it's up to the backline techs to get a strategically placed piece of gaff tape over that volume knob.
Just decrease the put a little stopper in there so you can only turn it a quarter of the way.
Oh, that reminds me. I have an organ player who's just out of control. I'm almost to the point. I've had enough complaints where, I'm literally just going to cut a chunk of 2x4 and jam it under the volume pedal. Either that or find a way. Well, the thing is, I can't sabotage it at the amps because it's a hybrid organ where the lower notes are all produced through subs and speakers, and only
what piano is it? Is it the Nord?
No, in the chapel in the other room.
Oh, and the real organ.
Yeah. No, I don't have any problems with my keyboards. They're beautiful. But the real organ, the 16-foot pipes and longer are reproduced through these subwoofers, and all the pipes up to a certain length, up to about 3 foot, are reproduced through speakers, and then there are actual pipes from the 3 foot length down to the tiniest little piccolo pipes up at the top of the keys. And old what's his name is just a little bit of a lead foot there with the volume pedal, pretty much drowns out the everything.
That I've never all of my, because we've got a C3, and then we've got a tabletop Hammond XP2, but it's got an actual Leslie cabinet.
Yeah.
hooked up to it and stuff, but I've never seen any of the organ players, probably all 10 of them that have come through, that volume pedal doesn't go more than half.
Oh yeah,
ever.
You can kill people with those things.
On the soft setting, like we built a cage for the 147 that we've got with it. I think it's 147 or a 122, one of the two, one of the good Leslie cabinets. We had a guy come in, build this gorgeous, nice cherry cabinet for it and stained it and everything. Somebody painted it black. That was nice. It's fairly thick wood, and then he put bear hair inside of it. So that stuff's about 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
And it stops everything. Not a Leslie. Doesn't stop a Leslie. Not even close to stopping a Leslie. I have 4 holes in that cabinet, 2 up top, so I can stereo mic the top rotating horn, and then 1 I stick a bass mic in the bottom. But the sound's not coming out of those. It's just like
just sneaking around the mics.
Like from back of the stage where it's planted, I can feel it in the floor in the bathroom at the other end of the church. And he's maybe at halfway. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if I can take tubes out of it or what. But
that's a thought. Well, we can look into sabotaging them because
I don't want to sabotage it though. We just take out the volume pedal because I don't want to wreck that cabinet. Because that's,
you slip the drive belt off, turn the pot down halfway, slip the drive belt back on.
Yeah,
that's the trick.
We do that. They're all pretty good about it, so it's not a big deal.
That's probably what I'm gonna have to do. Except I think mine's an optical encoder, so I'm gonna have to get some. I don't know.
Put some sunglasses on it.
Yeah, deal with it.
It came with another cabinet too. It came with a bass tone cabinet with a PR40. And the pastor of my church owns the organ. He owns the C3 and the 147 and the PR40. He's like, the reason I bought the organ is for the bass cabinet. I was like, really? That's what you bought a C3 for? You bought it for the... Okay. He's like, you got to plug it in and get the full sound. There are 11 10-inch speakers in that sucker, plus a reverb tank that's probably about 4 feet long. And it's got a drape on the back.
That billows in the gale-forced winds.
Holy crap. I can't even imagine. We put it upstairs and locked it in the back corner of my office. So you want to be like, what happened to the tone cabinet? We didn't have space for it. We had to bring it up here.
You got it upstairs? While you were redoing the roof, did you have them crane it up there for you?
No,
because that was the other instance of me blatantly. I'll placebo mic quite a bit in small venues, but I did a tent meeting in about a 500 cap tent with no sides on it. It was wide open, but for a church, and dude shows up with a Hammond and a Leslie, and I'm going around mic and stuff. I was like, hey, sound. He was in from North Carolina or something.
Yeah.
Sound man, you want to mic up this Leslie here? Yeah, I'll mic that up. I took a 57 out of the box. I placed it on top of the Leslie cabinet and I walked away. No cable, no nothing. I just, boom, there you go. There's your mic. That's all you get.
Those things are, we've got...
That's when you have a maximum amount of voltage and a maximum amount of effect.
The thing is just, they sound so good, though. You can't get near them without hurting yourself. But we had an older, or a newer, it was an H-series organ, and the pastor had 2 Leslie cabinets for it, with a stereo cable and everything. It was this is all we used to have for a sound system. It's I bet. I bet you did. Those are also sitting in a cabinet. So if anybody wants to buy Leslie speakers with a Hammond H1,
get in touch.
108 or
www.churchjunk.com. No,
Church Junk. Junk's below $500. I want at least $650 for this. All 3.
All right. Well, we're running long. I just noticed. So. Anyway, just wanted to say hi to a couple of the brethren of the knob and fader out there preserving precious tone molecules. Went up to Ica over in Germany, holding it down in the motherland for us. Also, our buddy Liam, who we hope to see in town at some point this summer on his way through. Take him out for a coffee or a beer as the hour is appropriate.
Yep.
And that's really about it. Good evening to all our brethren out there on Reddit, even the ones who think we're dumb and not funny. There's no such thing.
Yeah, we're talking about you.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. Keep talking. But actually, I'm kind of proud. For a long time, all we were getting was great reviews. I was actually kind of glad. The first time we had a detractor, I was like, "Wow, we're in the big time now."
Wow, somebody that's older than 8's listening to us
People
now.
Hate us. Somebody who's not my mom listens to this. But anyway, thanks once again for tuning in. By all means, get in touch if you have questions. If you have save your criticisms because we don't care. We're pretty much set in our ways. We've settled into a way of doing business, and we're going with it. But anyway, do get in touch if you have questions, if you have ideas. If you would like to be on our show, we can work that out. We can Skype your ass in. And although we do have a couple people on the waiting list, we just got to sort it out, for time zones and whatnot. And that's about it. We'll see you next week if you're lucky.
Have a good night, guys.
See ya.